Hello everyone, it is Jazz here, and today I am doing a monthly recommendations video. Monthly Recommendations is a Goodreads group started by Kayla from Kayla Rain and Trina at Between Chapters, and I will leave the link to the group in the description if you want to check it out. In the month of February, we are recommending books that contain our OTPS, aka our true pairings. I only have 5 true favorites that never leave that top 5 spot. All of these couples are from classic books, so because I'm pretty sure that most people know what these books are about, I'm not going to go in too much detail into the summaries. I'm just going to talk more about why I like the couples in them. So I'm going to jump right in with my 5 favorite couples. Let's go for it. I'm going to start with probably the most troubled couple on this list, and it is Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler from Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. I can admit that Rhett and Scarlett have a variety of seriously dysfunctional problems. Even though these two people are secretly so perfect for each other, they are also seriously afraid to be in love with each other or to commit to anything involving a real relationship, which I guess for some readers would be super frustrating, but I find it so very interesting and so very layered in terms of the psychology of the two characters, and I don't know why I ship it so hard. And you know I'm serious about this ship because I do read fan fiction about this couple. So even though they have deep-seated emotional problems individually and together, I still love Rhett and Scarlett. It's just my way. The next book, or shall I say play, that I have to recommend containing one of my favorite literary couples is Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. And of course my favorite couple in this is Benedict and Beatrice. Benedict and Beatrice are basically these two characters that just hit heads constantly from the beginning of the play. They are pretty much always at odds, and they are always trying to find witty ways to throw shade at each other. That sort of leads their friends and loved ones to sneakily trick them into falling in love with each other. There's many plots and subplots going on, but that is definitely one of the most amusing plots. I really like this couple because as individuals, they are really interesting, witty, smart characters, and so it's really interesting to see their interactions and to see how they react to each other, both before they get together and after they get together. And the other reason I recommend Much Ado About Nothing is because I did have a friend ask me, what is one Shakespeare play that you should pick up if you're not familiar really with reading a lot of Shakespeare outside of school? And I decided to go with Much Ado About Nothing because I think it is, first of all, the most easy to understand Shakespearean play, and also I do think it is a play that is very easy to get when you watch it. I think both versions of this play that have been adapted for film, which are the 1993 version and the 2012 sort of modernized version, are really good examples of this. It's kind of a play where you can watch it and sort of get what's going on even if you're not always understanding what the dialogue is, or if you miss some of the dialogue. The actions of the characters kind of really demonstrate what is going on, which can really help you when you do decide to read the play. Apparently, I have a love for relationships that start off kind of argumentative, which I didn't realize till I was composing this recommendations. My next recommendation is, of course, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, which contains one of my favorite relationships, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. The reasons why I like this couple actually have a lot to do with the original title of this book, which was First Impressions. So I feel like the book is about two people overlooking their initial negative impression of each other and trying to find some level of understanding and compromise within the journey that they have with each other. And I feel like that makes it, to me, a more realistic sort of relationship. A lot of times, especially Mr. Darcy, but sometimes closer too, they put their foot in their mouth and say like just the totally wrong thing because maybe they don't know all the information or whatever. But as they journey on, they really find cool things about each other throughout the story. For example, Darcy discovers that he really, in fact, loves Elizabeth Bennet because she is not afraid to tell him when he's being a little bit of an idiot. Whereas most women in his life, because he is very wealthy, would probably just, you know, kiss up to him and tell him what he wants to hear because they want to marry a rich guy. And she doesn't care about that, and he thinks it's kind of awesome. And little tidbits like that about their relationship is what makes them really interesting to me. People have said that they find it kind of hard to get into. I never personally found it hard to get it into, so I guess it just depends on the person. I personally was very, very entertained by Pride and Prejudice and also find it flipping hilarious in points. Next super endearing couple slash book that I have for y'all is Anne and Gilbert from the Anne of Green Gables series. Now yet again, this is a relationship that kind of started off a little bit rocky because Anne didn't really like Gilbert, but you know, he kept on keeping on. He was persistent, and they built like a really cute, awesome friendship first, and then it turned into a beautiful, loving relationship, which is like the cutest kind of relationship, am I right? They're both really cool, really smart. They have different interests of their own, but they can come together and find a lot of common ground, which I think is great. So really not much of their relationship is featured in the first book because they're just meeting and they're basically children. It does develop so that by book 5 we are like heading on to that relationshipville. So that's kind of why I think, even though I haven't reread the series in a while, Anne's House of Dreams is the one I remember being a favorite. And I know some of you are not at all surprised that I'm recommending this book series again because, you know, I am obsessed. And I can't help it because I love Anna Gilbert so much. Last one should yet again not be anybody's surprise. It is, of course, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester. I can admit that maybe Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester have sort of an odd approach to their relationship because they definitely have some really messed up pasts. And so that kind of makes them odd characters individually, but that's kind of what I like, is that they're odd and they don't really fit anywhere outside of their relationship, and it's an interesting dynamic in terms of their journey as well as like their personalities. Because they have such interesting sort of upbringings and personalities, they do have some really interesting discussions and dialogue, which I think is the key to me really loving a OTP, is that they have really interesting dialogue in general. I think all the books that I've mentioned today have that kind of quality. I also like that these two characters are like not the most beautiful people in the world. They're not actually attractive at all, but they can look past about that. Like, they don't care. And I also like that sort of written in here that they're written very tied to each other in a way. Like, they have this for sure soulmate sort of vibe, like they know when something's wrong with the other character and things like that. As a book though, I think it's a really cool classic novel. It is written in first person, which makes it kind of feel like a YA novel. There are a lot of deep issues in this book, so I think that makes it something sort of interesting in terms of classic novels. So if you really like gothic romance, or you're looking for a classic that I think is fairly easy to get into, this is definitely one to check out. So those were my 5 favorite books featuring my 5 favorite OTPs that I recommend as just books, but also just really interesting couples. I hope you guys don't mind a couple of these were re-recommends because I have recommended them in other recommendations videos for other reasons, but I just couldn't help it because they're my favorite and I have to recommend them one more time. But that is it for today. Bye!